Hello, this is Adam Taylor, a programmer at Knife Edge Software, the developers of RealFlight G5. This video aims to teach you some of the details about the cameras in your RealFlight G5 simulator. The first topic I'm going to cover is G5's different zoom modes. These different zoom modes control how RealFlight's camera decides to zoom in on your aircraft. Here's the RealFlight G5 simulator loaded up with the default P-51 Mustang at the Sodform Airport. Let's go ahead and take off. You will notice that as we get airborne, the camera ensures that we're always able to see the ground as well as our aircraft. This helps us to keep more aware of the aircraft's position in relation to the ground. This zoom mode is called Keep Ground in View. Let's try out the next zoom mode by pressing the Z key on the keyboard. You should see a message on screen saying Changing Zoom Mode to Manual Zoom. In manual zoom mode, the camera does not take the ground into account and is only concerned with looking at your aircraft. As its name implies, we can also manually control how far we want the camera to zoom in or out. This is done by pressing the plus and minus keys on your keyboard. The plus key is used to zoom in, and the minus key is used to zoom out. Let's try out another zoom mode by pressing the Z key on the keyboard again. This time you should see a message saying Changing Zoom Mode to Auto Zoom. The auto zoom mode is similar to manual zoom mode in that it only tries to look at your aircraft, but it does some extra work for us, zooming in on the aircraft as it gets further away and zooming out as it gets closer. We can press the Z key one more time to get back to the Keep Ground in View zoom mode where we started. The second topic I'm going to cover is G5's binocular gadget. It can be easy to fly far off into the distance and lose orientation of your aircraft, especially if you're flying on a small computer monitor. To aid with this problem, G5 includes what's known as a binocular gadget. Let's open the binocular gadget now. First, let's open the Gadget tabs menu on the left-hand side of the screen by moving the mouse over there. If you have an Interlink Elite controller, you can also open this menu by pressing the white Menu button in the area below the left stick. Highlight and select the picture that looks like a pair of binoculars, and the binocular gadget will appear. Notice that the binocular gadget lets you see the aircraft as if it were up close, allowing you to keep an eye on its orientation, even if it's a mile away. When you first open the binocular gadget, it will appear in its default location in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. If you'd like to move it elsewhere, simply click on it, click and drag the blue title bar around the screen until you have it where you want it, and release the mouse button. If you want to enlarge or shrink the binocular gadget, click and drag on the small area in the lower right-hand corner of the gadget until you have it the size you want it, and release the mouse button. There is a shortcut available for opening and closing the binocular gadget at any time. Just press the number 3 on your keyboard. The next topic I'm going to cover requires us to have a fully 3D airport loaded. Let's switch to one now. Here we are at flight school, with our plane setting on the runway, ready for takeoff. This particular combination of pit position and takeoff position is just one of several combinations available at this airport. We can press the X key on the keyboard to switch to another. Here we are looking at our aircraft from the top of the flight school control tower. We can repeatedly press the X key again and again to try more pit positions until we arrive back where we started. Next, I'm going to cover some more advanced camera controls. Up until now, the camera has been in what is called fixed view mode. In fixed view mode, the camera stays in one spot and always looks in the direction of our aircraft. I'm going to talk about walk mode, where we're not just limited to the pit positions predefined in the airport. Using walk mode, we can move the pilot's viewpoint virtually anywhere we want. Let's enter walk mode by pressing the Q key. You should see a message printed on screen saying Entering Walk Mode, followed by some instructions. Like the instructions say, hold the W key to walk forward, the S key to walk backward, the A key to step to the left, and the D key to step to the right. You can use the mouse to look around and change which way the camera is facing. Move the mouse left or right to turn left or right. Move the mouse forward to look up, and backward to look down. But we're not just limited to walking around on the ground. RealFlight also has a fly mode, which we can access by pressing Q once again. Fly mode is very similar to walk mode, with the exception that when we look toward the sky and press the W key, we can actually leave the ground. Looking down and pressing W will get us closer to the ground again. The A and D keys will continue to slide us left and right. Pressing the Q key again brings us into hover mode. Hover mode is very similar to fly mode, with the main difference being that the W, A, S, and D keys will never change our elevation above the ground. To change our elevation in hover mode, hold down the right mouse button and move the mouse forward or backward. Moving the mouse forward will increase our elevation, and moving backward will decrease our elevation. We can also use the scroll wheel on the mouse to change our elevation. Scrolling forward increases our elevation, and scrolling backward decreases our elevation. Pressing Q once again will cause us to slowly fall back to the ground, where we'll return to fixed view once again. One more thing about hover mode. If we're already in walk mode or fly mode, there's a shortcut to get into hover mode immediately without having to cycle through all the modes by pressing Q. Simply roll the mouse wheel or right-click and drag the mouse to change your elevation. The last interactive camera mode I'm going to cover is pivot mode. Let's switch into pivot mode by pressing the E key. Pivot mode is a bit different than any of the previous camera modes we've covered. In pivot mode, the camera always looks directly at our aircraft, but can pivot around it and look at it at virtually any angle. To pivot around the aircraft, simply move the mouse left or right. To move closer to the aircraft, move the mouse forward. To move further away from the aircraft, pull the mouse backward. We can change our elevation in pivot mode just like we learned earlier for hover mode. Hold the right mouse button and move the mouse forward or backward to increase or decrease elevation. We can also use the scroll wheel on the mouse. Up until now, all the camera modes we've used have been primarily independent of our aircraft, looking from a third-person perspective and requiring us to manually control its movement with the mouse and keyboard. If we press the C key, we can move the camera to the nose of the aircraft and fly looking from the aircraft's perspective. Pressing C again switches us into chase view, where the camera closely follows along behind the aircraft. Depending on the aircraft loaded, there may also be several onboard cameras available. The P-51 Mustang has 4 onboard camera modes. We can access these by pressing the C key again. We can fly from inside the cockpit, from in front of the plane looking toward the rear, from the tail of the plane, or from the wing. Pressing C one last time will bring us back into fixed view mode. Remember that the onboard cameras are dependent upon the aircraft loaded and that not all aircraft will have the same onboard cameras available. The function keys F1 through F10 function as shortcut keys to get us into many of the camera modes we just covered. Pressing F1 instantly brings us into fixed view. F2 activates nose camera. F3 activates chase view, and the keys F4 through F10 will activate up to 7 of the available onboard cameras. The last topic this video will cover is the viewport gadget. The viewport gadget can be accessed by opening the gadget tabs and selecting the picture that looks like a camera. The viewport gadget functions as a second camera in its own window, independent of the main camera. All of the camera functionality we've learned so far applies to this viewport gadget as well, meaning we can change zoom modes, move the camera, use onboard cameras, etc., all using the same mouse and keyboard techniques covered earlier. And, just like the binocular gadget, we can move and resize the gadget however we like. You may notice the thin yellow border around the viewport's display. This indicates that any camera modifying key presses or mouse movements will apply to the viewport gadget instead of the main view. If you'd like to control the main view once again, simply click on it to give it focus. To give focus back to the viewport gadget, simply click on it again. The keyboard shortcut for opening and closing the viewport gadget is the 4 key. This concludes the video. I hope you found it informative and enjoyable. Thanks for watching.